Hey friends, it's Teresa here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a layout for you for the Clique Kits creative team. I'm working with the Pinkfresh Delightful Sampler Kit, which is unfortunately now sold out already, but I will link down below the current Pinkfresh products that are available in the shop, and I know you'll be able to find something similar, or perhaps you purchase this kit and you'll get some fun inspiration from this layout. And so first off, let me tell you that this is going to be stitching for beginners or stitching for those who are differently abled. And so first off, here are some of the things that are included in the sampler kit and how I'm planning to use them. I shared with you the pattern papers in the kit, and I pulled this one with the leaves going around the outside of the page in rainbow color. And then I also pulled some of my embroidery floss from my collection and matched them with some of the colors on this page. And so, full disclosure, I am not that great of a hand stitcher. It's hard for me to hold the needle for long periods of time. I love how layouts look with the stitching on them, and of course the textural experience that comes with that. But I'm not personally able to do heavy stitching layouts. And what I thought I would do is challenge myself to use smaller amounts of stitching so that I could still incorporate some of these cute embroidery flosses with this beautiful pattern paper, but it not hurt my hands. And so if you're in a similar situation, or you don't really like stitching, or you're new to stitching, this will be a great tutorial for you. And so first off, what I want to do is build some embellishment clusters following the color palette of this background page. So I'm using a second pattern paper here to cut apart these word strips, and particularly I chose the word strips that had a bit of color going through them as well, because we're going to do very color-based embellishments and build these colors on top of each other, continuing the rainbow pattern around the page. So I'm just cutting these up really quickly and trying to find enough to use. I think it was 8 colors that I ended up using. Just a note about the colors of embroidery floss that I'm using. I don't know exactly what DMC numbers they are. Some of them are not actually DMC. They're just some I've had in my collection for years and recently rediscovered them, reorganized them, and thought, I never use these, so let's see what we can do. Now, once I cut all these strips apart, I'm cutting the individual word strips that I want to use, and I'm leaving a little bit of space before and after the word strips with my cuts. And the reason for that is those little spaces are where we're going to add some of our stitching. And so again, just trying to match those up with the colors on the background paper and continue building the color palette on top of that background paper. So I think I have them kind of approximately laid out on the page in a circle going around the pattern paper, and that leaves a lovely white space in the center for my photo. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I've placed the photo sort of approximately where it's going to go, And then here's where we're going to do some very light stitching on each of these word strips. I'm using these tapestry needles, and just going to grab one of the word strips, and I have a cutting mat and a paper punch on the cutting mat already, and I'm going to just unwind a bit of the green floss and trim it up, and then thread my needle. You don't need a lot of thread here because we're just going to put one little cross stitch into this word strip. So I'm going to take that paper punch and go ahead and punch 4 little holes in a rough kind of rectangular shape there. And I'm doing it purposely not perfect. And then pick up your paper and punch through a little bit bigger so that the tapestry needle will go through it. And just be careful when you're doing this. If you need to use a thimble, please do, because you can you can poke your finger. I've done that before. So don't poke your finger. And then I'm just gonna thread this needle. The secret to doing this, excuse me, is to wet the end of the floss a little bit. It's got, what is it, 4 strands, 4 individual strands. And, but if you just wet it a little bit and then flatten it, it'll go through the needle. At some point, you'll get it through. You can also purchase a little needle guide that will help you thread needles if that's something that you struggle with. And there are probably needles with bigger heads on them if you need that. So at any rate, I got it threaded, and we're going to pull it through the first hole. Pick a corner, any corner, and then hold on to that end as you pull it through. Leave yourself enough in the back so that you can tie a little knot, or if your design calls for it, leave enough so you can tie a little bow. But we're just going to make the simple little X, X marks the spot here thing. And once they're all pulled through and the little X shows, then I'm going to trim that excess off and tie a little knot. And then I'm going to tape it down with Scotch tape. And this is totally your own personal preference. But what I find is that the Scotch tape helps keep it in place behind the word strip so the little strings don't pop out on your layout. So I'm going to just position those little threads and lay the Scotch tape completely over it. And some will be left hanging off of the edges. And I'm just going to take my scissors here and let's trim those little edges of tape, and that way you'll have your embroidery floss tucked behind there. I'm not going to show you the excruciatingly long process of cross-stitching all of those. I did it a little bit at a time throughout the day yesterday, and that helped me to get it done and not kill my hands. Another thing I did not film that part of the process, but I did wrap some of the embroidery thread around half of the frame, the top half of the chipboard frame. That is so cute. And added another little punch of color. So I'm going to trim that photo down and get that to the size that I need it to be. And then I decided, well, why don't I just sort of make that a little bit at an angle. Everything else is planned to go very horizontal, straight lines. And so that's another way to kind of shake things up and bring that focus to your eye right in the center. So at this stage, the next thing I'm going to do is organize the die cuts by color. These were what was included in the sampler kit. Of course, in the full pack, there would be more, but this is so that I can continue adding a few more embellishments to each cluster or to each word strip and continue building on these embellishment clusters. And so that turns out to work out really nicely. I absolutely adore these vellum leaves. They are classic Pinkfresh style, and they have a little gold line going through them. And so I press down in that gold line with my thumb to make the edges of the leaves stick out a little bit, and that gives it a little bit of dimension across the page and makes it a little more ethereal. Is that the word I'm looking for? And I love that. I love that about vellum pieces and transparency pieces. And then I also wanted to use these butterflies, so I'm also just folding those up with the wings a little bit, again to repeat that vellum feel across the page. And of course, trying as much as possible to do green on green, purple on purple, pink on pink. You kind of get the idea for that. And then there was a couple of little rainbow butterflies. And so I'm going to use that one next to the frame as another bit of emphasis on the photo. So everything is pretty much arranged here, and it's time to adhere everything down. Let's start with the photo here. I hadn't really talked about the photo. I had this photo from last year. It's of Zoe, our cat, with River. And these two are mostly inseparable. It's thanks to the pandemic, because Zoe had eternal cuddle buddies while everyone was working on schoolwork. She would go and cuddle with all of them. And River became her favorite human, and she still hangs out with River quite a bit of the time. If River's not there, she's laying in River's bed and just being the queen of River's room. And so I snapped this really cute photo of them together, and this seemed like a fun little way to document the two of them together. So what I did with the frame is I just added tiny pop dots to the lower half of it in the back, and then stuck it down to the photo, and then stuck the photo down to the background paper itself. And then I'm using foam tape for these word strips to pop them up a little bit. That lets you tuck things underneath it. It makes it easy to adhere the vellum leaves so that it hides that adhesive, and those are stuck in place now. And then for the butterflies, you'll notice that I took glue dots and placed the glue dots in the center of each butterfly, and then scrunched the glue dot in a little bit so that it kind of looks like the body of the butterfly behind the vellum. And so that also lets those wings pop up a little bit off the page. I just impress that fold again a little bit so that they'll have that dimension there. And I'm just going around the page, layering all of these pieces down. It's pretty much a very simple formula: word strip with a cross stitch on it, Some of them have the leaves behind it to bring the leaves from the background paper more into the center and direct your eye into the photo. Everything that I've added to this page directs your eye to the photo. And also, you may notice that a main cluster is building over on the right-hand side of the photo. And so that's becoming the focal point for this layout. And that's probably where I'll add my journaling as well. And that will lead your everything on the layout sort of leads your eye in that direction. I also made the point here of layering the butterflies. They're all adhered going in the same direction. And this is sort of where round meets line, circle meets line, because the background paper itself and the word strips create a very definitive circle that leads your eye around the page in a circle. Now, once your eye goes around that circle, it's also going to go diagonal from left to right up towards the center of the photo and towards the journaling once it gets placed. And that's an intentional intersection of design concepts. I hope that makes sense. It's a layering of design concepts. So the kit also had just a selection of chipboard pieces, the puffy stickers, which y'all know I love, and there were a couple of banners in here. I didn't use the banners this time. And so I'm going to add those little touches to these word strip clusters here, and also sort of continue combining letting these elements touch so that it completes the visual circle around the page. Again, color on color, yellow on yellow, green on green, blue on blue. And now that most of the embellishments are on the page, now I can add my journaling. And so, full disclosure, I don't end up liking this first journaling that I'm doing, but I'll show you what I did anyway, because it lets you see just part of the process and part of I put something down and didn't like it, so I'm going to redo it. So I took a little half note card, and I do love collecting little note cards, graph paper note cards, office supplies. I love going to Office Depot. And so this one was just a simple half note card punched in a circle, and I left part of it open at the top above the red line to add my adhesive, and I was going to make it be a little flip up, which is really cute. It's a great concept. And I went ahead, and after I completed that little partial circle, I took the little red and pink word strip, or pink and pink word strip there, and added a little bit more a little bit more floss to that to add underneath, to tuck underneath that purple word strip. Whew, that took me way too long to say that. And so here's another way that you can add floss pretty easily to your layouts, and that is by just simply punching a hole or taking your hole in your tag and running the floss through it a couple of times, and then tie a little bow. Now, My advice for tying a little tiny bow is not to curse at it, because they know if you're mad at you and then they don't behave. I'm just kidding. I make a big bow and then pull the ends and make it smaller. That's how I make little tiny bows. And so that's another fun little way that you can incorporate embroidery floss and not kill your hands. So that makes a nice little transition from the word strip to another word strip to the journaling. This was a great time for my adhesive to run out. So let me replace that real quick. And I decided to go ahead and use this Delight, what does it say? Delight in the Now word art. And so that becomes the title. I just tucked it underneath the top of the frame. And again here, building on that focal point over on the right hand side. I'm also just placing a few more of these little details. Oh yeah, the other thing that was included in that kit was a couple of the wax stamps. Oh, I love those so much. I would love to see more of those in the kits and also in these collections. I forgot that I had not trimmed off the marketing strip from this pattern paper. So I went ahead and did that and grabbed my date stamp. I realized that this date stamp went to 2021, but then it had a little 20 blank. And so that was perfect. I just made a little 2022 there, and then decided that journaling circle really looked odd on the page. It was a little, I don't want to say it was too white, but it just didn't look right. And I realized that lately I've been just doing this thing where I journal directly onto the pattern paper. And so I had these little line stamps from Studio Calico, and I just stamped that down twice and redid the journaling. And I like that a whole lot better. Again, of course, it fills out this focal point and provides a space for the story of this layout. And it looks really cute. I only wanted to do one more thing. Not quite done yet. Here, those lines needed a little something there. And then I grabbed this old roller date stamp that I had. It's from an older Paige Evans collection, probably from Whimsical, if I were to guess. But I could be wrong. You get bonus points if you remember what collection this little roller stamp is from. But it had just little lines of hearts and X's, which repeats the little cross stitch theme across the page. More hearts, a dotted line as well. And so I'm just adding that a little bit, just a little tiny bit more details here. And that completes the layout. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you'll join us in the Clique Kits Facebook group. You'll see tons more inspiration. And of course, I'll have links to the Pinkfresh Studio current products in the shop and links to the blog post below. See you back here again soon. Bye-bye.